Most Subaru owners replace spark plugs when they fail. That's the wrong approach, and it's costing them tens of thousands of miles of engine life they'll never get back. Here's what professional mechanics and high-mileage Subaru owners know that everyone else doesn't. Spark plugs don't just ignite fuel. They're the single most influential component in determining combustion quality across the entire life of your engine. And the way you select, install, and maintain them determines whether your engine accumulates carbon, runs lean, develops misfires, and wears out at 150,000 miles, or stays clean, runs efficiently, and lasts 300,000 miles or more. The trick I'm about to share adds a documented 50,000 miles to Subaru engine life when applied correctly and consistently. Not by replacing plugs more frequently, not by buying the most expensive plugs on the market, by understanding exactly what your Subaru's engine needs from its ignition system and giving it precisely that, nothing more and nothing less. I've seen this trick transform engines that were developing oil consumption at 80,000 miles. I've seen it stop early carbon buildup in its tracks on direct injection FB25 engines. I've seen it add measurable compression to engines that were slowly losing it. All from understanding spark plugs at a level most owners never bother with. Today I'm covering exactly what the trick is, why it works at the combustion chemistry level, how to implement it correctly, and which specific plugs to use in which specific Subaru engines for maximum longevity results. Let's get into it. Why spark plugs matter more than you think. Before the trick, you need to understand why spark plugs have such an outsized effect on engine longevity. Most people think of them as simple components that either work or don't. That's wrong. The combustion quality connection. Every power stroke in your engine begins with the spark plug firing. The quality of that spark, its timing, its energy level, its consistency from cycle to cycle, determines whether combustion is complete or incomplete. Complete combustion. All fuel burns cleanly. Maximum energy extracted, minimal byproducts. Combustion chamber stays clean. Incomplete combustion. Unburned fuel and partial combustion products deposit on piston tops, valve faces, combustion chamber walls, and oxygen sensors. Carbon builds. Oil gets contaminated faster. Rings lose their seal gradually. A spark plug that's past its service life, or the wrong heat range for your engine, or improperly gapped, produces weaker, less consistent sparks. This means more incomplete combustion events, more deposits, more wear, faster. A spark plug that's correctly specified, properly gapped, and replaced at the right interval produces consistent, complete combustion every cycle. The engine stays cleaner, wear rates drop, longevity extends. The direct injection amplification. This effect is amplified dramatically on modern direct injection Subaru engines, the FB25, FA20, and FA24. That power virtually every current and recent Subaru. In a direct injection engine, fuel sprays directly into the cylinder and has a very short time to mix with air before the plug fires. Combustion quality depends even more critically on precise spark timing and energy than in older port-injected designs. A slightly weak spark in a direct injection cylinder doesn't just cause a minor inefficiency. It causes partial combustion that deposits carbon aggressively on the piston crown and injector tip. These deposits accumulate faster than in port injection engines and are much harder to remove. Perfect spark quality in a direct injection engine keeps piston crowns clean, injector tips clear, and combustion chambers free of the deposits that cause long-term compression loss and oil consumption. What the trick actually is. Here it is, the spark plug trick that adds 50,000 miles to any Subaru engine. Replace spark plugs at exactly half the manufacturer's recommended interval, using iridium plugs with the correct heat range, and gap them to the tighter end of the factory specification. 3 components. All 3 matter. Let me explain each one. Component 1. Half-interval replacement. Subaru recommends iridium spark plug replacement at 60,000 miles on most current models. The trick: replace at 30,000 miles. This mirrors the oil change philosophy we've covered in previous videos, and for the same fundamental reason, manufacturer recommended intervals are designed to prevent failure during the warranty period, not to optimize engine longevity to 500,000 miles. Here's what happens to an iridium spark plug between 30,000 and 60,000 miles. The iridium electrode tip, which starts at approximately 0.6 millimeters diameter, wears to approximately 0.8 to 0.9 millimeters by 30,000 miles. Combustion quality is still excellent. Between 30,000 and 45,000 miles, the electrode continues wearing. The spark gap grows beyond factory specification. The ignition coil must work harder to fire the plug. Combustion quality begins declining measurably. Between 45,000 and 60,000 miles, the plug is significantly worn. Combustion quality is substantially below new plug levels. Carbon deposits are accumulating faster. The ignition coil is under stress. Misfires begin occurring, sometimes too infrequent to trigger a check engine light, but frequent enough to cause measurable deposit buildup. By the time most owners replace plugs at 60,000 miles, the engine has spent 15,000 to 30,000 miles with degraded combustion quality baking carbon onto every combustion chamber surface. Replace at 30,000 miles, and the engine never experiences that degraded combustion phase. Every combustion event over the engine's life uses a plug at or near peak performance. The cost: iridium plugs for a Subaru 4-cylinder, $40 to $80 for a set of 4 depending on brand, at 30,000 mile intervals over 300,000 miles. 10 sets of plugs equals $400 to $800 total, at 60,000 mile intervals over 300,000 miles. 5 sets of plugs equals $200 to $400 total. The extra cost: $200 to $400 over 300,000 miles. What it prevents: carbon cleaning services at $600 to $1,200, potential ring wear from deposit contamination, potential injector failure from piston crown, deposits affecting spray patterns. The return on investment isn't close. Component 2: correct heat range selection. This is where most owners and even many mechanics make critical mistakes. Spark plug heat range refers to how quickly the plug transfers heat from its tip to the cylinder head. This determines the tip temperature during operation. Too hot a plug, tip temperature exceeds 850 degrees Celsius, pre-ignition occurs, severe engine damage results. Too cold a plug, tip temperature below 450 degrees Celsius, carbon and oil deposits accumulate on the tip, fouling, causing misfires. Correct heat range. Tip temperature stays between 450 degrees Celsius and 850 degrees Celsius. Deposits burn off continuously in a self-cleaning process. Why this matters specifically for Subarus: the factory heat range recommendation is correct for a stock engine running at stock power levels under typical operating conditions. But several common Subaru situations push engines outside those typical conditions. Short-trip drivers who never reach full operating temperature need a slightly hotter plug that self-cleans at lower tip temperatures. Turbocharged WRX and STI owners pushing more boost than stock need a slightly colder plug that prevents pre-ignition under elevated cylinder pressure. High-altitude Subaru owners experience lower air density, affecting combustion temperatures and potentially requiring heat range adjustment. The correct plug for each situation: stock naturally aspirated Subaru, normal driving, factory recommended heat range. For most FB25 engines, NGK-ILK-AR 7L11 or equivalent. Stock naturally aspirated Subaru, predominantly short trips, 1 step hotter than factory. Ask your parts counter for the next heat range step up from the factory plug. Turbocharged WRX-STI stock, factory recommended heat range, NGKSILZKR7B11 or Denso equivalent. Turbocharged WRX-STI with aftermarket tune and elevated boost, one step colder than factory. This is critical. A stock heat range plug in a tuned high boost engine is a pre-ignition risk. Using the wrong heat range plug, even a high-quality iridium plug in the wrong heat range, produces worse results than a cheaper plug in the correct heat range. Before we continue, spark plug selection is one component of the complete combustion quality system that determines engine longevity. I've documented the full system, including correct plug specifications for every Subaru model and generation, in the 500,000-mile car maintenance blueprint. Link in the description. Component 3. Correct gap setting. The third component of the trick is the most precise and the most commonly skipped. Every spark plug, even pre-gapped plugs from reputable manufacturers, should be verified and adjusted to the correct gap before installation. Why gapping matters? The spark gap determines the voltage required to fire the plug. A wider gap requires higher voltage but produces a larger, more complete spark. A narrower gap requires lower voltage, but produces a smaller spark with less ignition energy. The factory specification represents the optimal balance for your specific engine's ignition coil output, compression ratio, and combustion chamber design. The trick: gap to the tighter end of the factory range. Most Subaru engines specify a gap range rather than a single number. The FB25 typically specifies 0.028 to 0.031 inches, 0.7 to 0.8 millimeters, gap to 0.028 inches rather than 0.031 inches. Why? 3 reasons. The electrode wears outward as it ages, widening the gap. Starting at the tight end of the specification gives the plug maximum service life before the gap grows too wide. A slightly tighter gap fires more consistently under high cylinder pressure conditions, such as cold starts and high load. This is exactly when combustion quality matters most for wear prevention. The ignition coils on modern Subarus, particularly 2015 and newer, have sufficient output to fire a tighter gap reliably. You're not sacrificing any combustion energy by gapping tight within the factory range. How to gap plugs correctly. Use a wire-type feeler gauge, not a flat blade gauge. Wire gauges give accurate readings on the rounded electrode geometry of iridium plugs. Flat blade gauges read incorrectly on curved electrode surfaces. Insert the correct wire gauge between the center and ground electrode. It should slide through with slight resistance. If it falls through freely, gap is too wide. If it won't enter at all, gap is too narrow. To widen, gently lever the ground electrode outward using the gapping tool's notch. Never touch the center iridium electrode. To narrow, gently press the ground electrode inward against a hard surface. Again, never touch the center electrode. Check 3 times. Iridium center electrodes are fragile and expensive. One wrong move damages an $18 plug. Plug selection by model. Here are the specific plugs for each major Subaru engine. FB25, 2011 to present Forester Impreza Crosstrek Outback 2.5 liters. NGKILKAR 7L11 Iridium gap to 0.028 inches. Replace every 30,000 miles. FB20 2012 to 2017 Impreza Crosstrek 2.0 liters. NGKILKAR 7L11 Iridium gap to 0.028 inches. Replace every 30,000 miles. FA20D IT 2015 to 2021 WRX NGK SILZKR 7B11 Iridium gap to 0.024 inches, tighter than naturally aspirated due to boost pressure. Replace every 25,000 miles. More frequent due to turbo heat and pressure stress. FA24DIT 2022 to present WRX, Outback XT, Legacy XT, Ascent. NGK-ILZFR6 K11 or Denso SK20HR11, gap to 0.02, 4 to 0.026 inches. Replace every 25,000 miles. EJ25, 2004 to 2014 legacy models. NGKBKR6 EIX Iridium or Denso IK20, gap to 0.040 inches. Replace every 30,000 miles. EJ257 STI. NGKBKR7 EIX, one step colder than standard EJ25. Gap to 0.028 inches. Replace every 20,000 miles due to extreme operating conditions. The installation process. How you install plugs matters as much as which plugs you select. Step 1. Remove plugs from a warm engine. Spark plugs are easier to remove from a warm engine because thermal expansion has slightly loosened the threads, but not a hot engine where burns are a risk. Warm, 30 to 60 minutes after last operation. Step 2. Inspect what comes out. The removed plug tells you important information. Light gray or tan color on the electrode and insulator. Perfect combustion, correct heat range, engine is healthy. Black, sooty deposits, rich running condition or plug too cold. Investigate fuel trims. White or chalky deposits, lean running condition or plug too hot. Check for vacuum leaks or wrong heat range. Oily deposits, oil consumption. Investigate ring or valve seal condition. Worn electrode with normal coloring, normal wear. Timing is right. Step 3. Clean the plug wells. Use compressed air to blow debris from the spark plug wells before removing plugs. This prevents debris from falling into the open cylinder. Step 4. Apply anti-seize correctly. Apply a very small amount of copper anti-seize to the first 2 threads of the plug only, not the electrode end, not all the way up the thread. Over-application of anti-seize causes plugs to seat deeper than intended, effectively changing the gap geometry relative to the combustion chamber. If using anti-seize, reduce the final torque specification by 10% because anti-seize reduces thread friction. Step 5. Torque correctly. Never tighten spark plugs by feel alone. Correct torque for most Subaru spark plugs, 14mm thread, 13 to 17 foot-pounds. Under-torqued plugs can back out, causing compression loss and potential engine damage. Over-torqued plugs stretch threads in the aluminum head, causing permanent damage that requires helicoil repair at significant cost. Use a torque wrench every time. The results you can expect. Implementing all 3 components of this trick, half-interval replacement, correct heat range, correct gap, produces measurable results. Immediate, within 500 miles of new plug installation. Smoother idle as combustion consistency improves across all cylinders. Slightly improved throttle response as combustion efficiency increases. Marginally better fuel economy, typically 0.3 to 0.8 miles per gallon on most Subaru models. Short-term, first 10,000 miles, reduced carbon accumulation rate on piston crowns and combustion chamber surfaces. Cleaner oxygen sensor readings allowing more accurate fuel trim management. Reduced ignition coil stress from consistently firing plugs rather than worn ones. Long-term, over 100,000 plus miles. Significantly cleaner combustion chambers requiring less frequent professional carbon cleaning. Maintained compression, as cleaner combustion produces fewer ring-contaminating deposits. Extended catalytic converter life from cleaner exhaust stream. The aggregate of all these effects over 200,000 to 300,000 miles is the 50,000-mile engine life extension the title promises. The bottom line. The spark plug trick that adds 50,000 miles to any Subaru engine has 3 components. Replace at 30,000 miles instead of 60,000. Never let plug wear degrade combustion quality in the phase between 45,000 and 60,000 miles, where carbon deposits accumulate fastest. Use the correct heat range for your specific driving pattern and power level. Stock naturally aspirated, factory heat range. Short trip driver, 1 step hotter. Tuned turbo, 1 step colder. Gap to the tight end of the factory specification using a wire feeler gauge. Start tight, let wear. Bring the gap to center over the plug's service life. What this costs over 300,000 miles, $200 to $400 extra in plugs versus changing at factory intervals. What this prevents, $600 to $1,200 in carbon cleaning, premature ring wear, injector deposit damage, catalytic converter replacement, and the general accelerated wear that comes from thousands of incomplete combustion events. The return on investment is one of the best in all of Subaru maintenance. Simple, cheap, and directly connected to engine longevity in a way that most owners never understand until it's too late. And if you want the complete maintenance system that surrounds this trick, including every other preventive practice that combines with proper ignition maintenance to produce genuinely extraordinary engine longevity, check out the 500,000-mile car maintenance blueprint in the description. If you found this video helpful, be sure to watch this next video as we're sharing insider tips to help you cut repair costs and keep your car running like new.